Well, hello and welcome to this latest video. In this video, we're going to look at creating HTML image maps in Windows. Now, the HTML code is the same in Windows, in Linux, in Mac OS, in any HTML code. That's no different. What we're actually going to look at, apart from the code, is how to find the coordinates of the parts of the image map in Windows. So first of all, what is an image map? Well, an image map is a section of an image which is clickable, or you can mouse over it and get some more information. And you can have multiple areas in one image. Let's have a look at types of image maps. There are three different shapes. You have the most common one, which is the rectangle, and it has the shape of rect. The next one is circle, and it has the shape of circle, and the final one is polygon, which has the shape name of poly. Now, the one you'll probably use the most is rectangle, but polygon is very useful if you've got strange shapes that you want to be able to highlight within the image. The outer element of the image map is called map, and it must have a unique name because the image element needs to be able to call it. The inner element is called area, and this does not have a closing tag, whereas you can see map has a closing tag, area does not have a closing tag. Inside of area, you have the attributes about the map. So the coordinates, the shape, this type of thing will all be inside the area element. Now, the image map itself is controlled by an image element, which is outside of the map element, and it will call it. Finally, you can actually nest shapes inside shapes. This is more of an advanced topic, and we'll probably do this in a different video. Right, let's have a look. I've created in Atom a new folder, HTML7b. Inside of that, I've created another folder, Images, and inside of that, I've put in an image called Squares, as you can see here. I've also created a template index.html file, and I've given it a title, Images Image Map. Now, the code which we will put in here is exactly the same for both Linux and Windows and Mac, or all of any computer that's actually showing HTML. The difference is how you find the coordinates for the clickable areas within the image map. To create the rectangular image map, I've opened Paint. Now, Paint is very good because down at the bottom, it actually gives you, if you watch this area just right down at the bottom left as I put the mouse over the picture, it actually gives you the coordinates. And so we need the coordinates of the left top and right bottom. Now, remember that for coordinates, it's always the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis first, and then the y-axis, which is the vertical axis second. So the x-axis here is actually 0, and the y-axis is 110. So this corner point is 0, 110. So we now need this point here, which is 100, 210. So those are the coordinates that we need for the rectangle. Right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to create an image element. We need to give it a source, and that will be images squares.png. We need to give it an alt just in case there's a problem, so we know what it is and the screen readers can actually read it out to those who need a screen readers. And we also need to tell it that it's actually going to use a particular image, an image map. So we will type in the attribute use map, and we're going to call it squares. Now you'll notice that there's the hash sign, the pound sign at the beginning. That's telling it that the map is actually on this document. Right, so we need to close that off, and if I save that, we should see it appear in our browser. So that's part one. We now need to create the map. So map, we need to give it a name, and that name must be the same as the use map name, but without the hash sign. We need to close the tag, and in here we will be able to put our different image maps. So the first one we're going to create is area. Now there's no closing tag for area, if you remember, and we need to tell it what shape it's going to be. So the shape equals a rectangle. We then need to give it the coordinates, and if you remember, the first coordinate was 0, the second coordinate was 110, and then the bottom right hand side, or the right hand bottom side, should be 110 by 210. So we've now given it the coordinates. Next, we need to tell it that it needs to do something, it needs to go somewhere. So we put in an href, and in there we're just going to put in the hash, the pound sign, because we don't want it to actually do anything as such. Now it's always a good idea to put in an alt, so we'll put in left middle square, and I'll just copy that, and we'll put in a title so that this will give the tooltip hint. Let's just recap. We've got an element called area. Inside that we've given it the shape style, which is a rectangle. We've got the coordinates for the rectangle. We've told it what's going to happen, where it's going to link to, which in this case is itself, the same page. We've given it an alt text in case there's a problem or there's a screen reader, and we've also given it a title so that we've got a tooltip. Now if I save that, you can see the blue dot has disappeared, and if I put my mouse over the image, you'll see it is still the normal arrow pointer until I move it into the square, and you can see the tooltip has popped up and it's changed into a clickable pointer. If I actually click on it, you'll see that there's just a faint outline border, and you can see that those are the coordinates that we chose here. So that's how you create a normal rectangular image map inside an image. Of course, if you want to go to a different page, you would put the page name here. So you might call it middle.html, for example. That doesn't actually exist. We only have index.html, but it does help if I can spell HTML. Okay, and we can, if we clicked on it, it would then go to that page. Now we'll get a 404 error because the page doesn't exist, and you can see here it is. But if it did exist, it would take us to that page. Right, let's have a look at a circle. So I've removed that. Now the circle is very similar in that we have the area, and inside that we have the shape, and this time it'll be circle, and we have the coordinates. Now for the coordinates we need the center point, the actual center point of the circle. To create the circle we need to find the center point of the item where we're going to put the circle, and on here it's 160 for this center square. Now we also need to know the radius, so that's the distance from the center to the outside edge, and on this it's actually 50 pixels. Okay, right, so we know that it's 160, 160, 50. So 160 being horizontal, 160 being vertical, and 50 being the radius. So we've now got our coordinates. We want an href to tell it where we're going, and of course we're not going anywhere. We want an alt tag, an alt attribute, so we'll call it center square. I'm in Europe, so we use the European spelling for center, and we want a title which will be center square in a circle. If I now save that and we come back to our browser, again we have the normal pointer when we go round. We have the clickable square, but if we move to the center one, you can see it now says center square in a circle. If we go up to the top, we still have the clickable pointer, but because this is a circle, if we move it up here, notice the pointer is changing, and that's because we're actually in a circle. I've just clicked on it, and you might be able to just see the border here, and so while you're inside the border you've got the clickable area, and as soon as you move outside it's gone. Right, now the third type of course is the polygon, and the polygon you can do any shape at all. It doesn't really matter what shape you want. You can do some very, very complex shapes indeed. I'm just going to do a triangle mainly because of time. And okay, to find the points for a polygon, again it's always the horizontal first followed by the vertical. And here I'm going to create a triangle, and so we want this point here, which is 220 by 230. We want this point here, which again is 220 by 310, and then we want this point up here, which is actually 319 by 230. And so those are the points we need to create the triangle. If I click in here, I can put in my coordinates. So we have the correct coordinates. We need to have the link, which again is going to be just the hash. We need an alt tag, so I'm just going to write triangle in there, and we need a title, which will be poly triangle, and I need to close my element. So we've given it the shape of poly, we have the coordinates, and you can have a long list. I mean, it can be a very complex shape. We have where it's going to go to when it's clicked. We've given it an alternative, and we have a tooltip title. I've saved that, and again, if I move my mouse around, as I move it into this square, you can see it changes. And if I click on it, you might just be able to see the triangle here. And it looks like I've given a wrong coordinates somewhere. I have, so let's just save that, click again, and yeah, we can now see that we've got a proper triangle. I hope you found that useful. If you have, please like and subscribe. My name's John,